And just to reiterate, part of the Indocumentales project is that this experience be able to be replicated in different scenarios. So if there's a community center, school, a place where you think this dialogue could take place, you get in touch with us and then we'll help facilitate a dialogue where you are. So the idea is that as many people as possible know about this work and see these films, and we bring in more people because I'm Mexican American and I'm also familiar with, have gone over to Mexico often to do interviews and deal with these issues, and many people, like Carlos was saying, in the cities, they're not interested, they don't really understand this reality at all because they're not, it's not part of their lives. It's very much of the North, it's of another economic class, and so it's a whole other move to get this conversation that we're having here because we're all affected by it here, but in Mexico, in certain areas, people aren't really, so certain people aren't, and so it's important that those people also become part of this conversation because the solutions are going to have to come from both sides. Is there a question over here? I'll pass this in.
I'll speak up.
Okay.
I'd like to congratulate you on the work and direct my question to the director. As much as I appreciated the share of the three of you. You introduced yourself by saying that you had reservations about doing such a project because there's so many films on the topic. So you may find the question a challenge or a provocation, I hope. I wonder how you feel now that you made the film and whether you think that it's important for there to be as many, if not more, films that deal with the issue that Ivo has experienced of crossing the border, of immigration, or do you feel like enough is enough? Basta.
Well, I definitely feel that there's many films to be made about the subject. I think that we made a film that is just a little part of the story. You know, we wanted to make a film that could open up the experience of the families that stay behind to a lot of people, but it is still only 9 families and 9 type of experience. What I was afraid was when I said that there were many films about the subject. What I was afraid is of making just another film of the subject when I couldn't make it personal, because when you make things personal, then you know why you're telling the story, and it's not only, you know, well, it's a good idea to talk about this right now. You know, in fact, it was a bad idea to talk about this at the moment when we were making the film, because there was very little interest in making, you know, like bringing resources to the project, bringing people into the project to be able to actually launch a film like this. And at the same time, when you make it personal and it becomes something that you are involved in another level, you bring a lot more force for the project to be made, and that's what happened. And gladly we got the foundation to support the whole shooting of the movie. But also, what I must say is that now, after making the movie, I realized also that how important it is to bring all these issues, more so than I did before. I realized that, of course, we have been bombarded by facts and figures and facts and figures. Every newsreel in TV, every newspaper, every day talks about facts and figures. And it has been so much that it no longer affects. You know, it loses all its power. And it has nothing to do with the story of Marisela and Evelyn as, you know, as mother and child, or it has nothing to do with the relationship between Jeremy and Rodolfo as father and child. So, but now when we were making the film, it was actually incredible how emotionally difficult it was to be doing this film, because of course Juan Carlos and I both have families, and we were away maybe 2-3 weeks, then coming back for a few days, and then another 2-3 weeks. And if it was difficult for us to leave our families for 2-3 weeks, but also when you're in contact and you're sharing the life of a family like this, you start to understand how difficult it is, and to realize that if you live in Mexico and you have a family and you can kiss your kids good night every night, you are a lucky
Yeah.
father.
There's a kind of growing movement in Mexico, the right to not migrate, and there are people who are exploring this idea of not, what would it take to not have to leave home? And I have a question for Mary Jo about what's happening at the policy level to address the impact of migration on families, because it feels like that is specifically what you're working on.
Well, if what Carlos was talking about, that so many people are bombarded with figures, and at the policy level, that's why something like this is so important. I was thinking in answer to that question, what we need to do and what we want to do is to take this film to the United Nations. We need to take it to Congress, because those politicos, they think in terms of theories, they think in terms of remittances, how wonderful it is this money is coming into El Salvador. It's the second highest source of income, and they don't think about the people. And so here in the United States, for example, the policy is being driven by a lot of misinformation. That's why something like this is so important. When I used to go around and talk to groups in Ohio, I would expect to get some negativity or some arguments, and I never did, because they knew nothing about it. And when I told them the reality of why people were coming and what they were doing, and that they were paying taxes and that they were contributing, they couldn't argue. Unfortunately, what's happening right now is the good news is coming by default. For example, some of you may have heard that there's a huge backlog in deportation cases. Initially, the government said, no, they were only going to deport people who had committed crimes and were here in an undocumented fashion. But then they were raiding everywhere. They were raiding people that were citizens or permanent residents. So a lot of people have deportation procedures. Now they have too many cases. So now they've decided that anybody who is here without papers but hasn't committed crime, they're going to put a hold on deportation. It's pretty sad that we can only be human when we have a backlog in cases, but thank God for that. At the international level, one of the things we've been working on for 4 years is the Global Forum on Migration and Development. And unlike other things that are within the UN system that we as non-governmental organizations can participate freely in, this deliberately was put outside the UN system because I don't think they wanted us pushing them, but we found ways anyway. And so we're stressing the human rights. And what's happening is each year, the countries who are, we call the countries of origin, who send people who are a rich contribution to the receiving countries, are talking up more and more. They're aligning themselves with the NGOs. And we are talking about the people. And we are talking about the people left behind. And right now, for example, in the United States, I have so many friends where part of the family has been deported, or where the parents were deported, and so the children went to a country they've never been in. They don't know the language. So those are things that we're doing a big push this year on children. What happens to children? The children that are left behind in Mexico or wherever, or the children that are left behind in the United States when a father is deported and the mother is here because she's from here and she's got an aged parent she has to take care of. It's so complicated, but the people who make the policy most often are the people who know least about what's really going on and about the human dimension of what's going on. And so that's what we're trying to push. And there's movement, but it's slow.
So it sounds like we do have to keep pushing this movie on everyone.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Any more questions? I think it's getting a little